Salutations, kindred souls. My name is Lux, and I love talking about wisdom, healing, and integration. I'm an integration coach. And if you're here because you found the title intriguing, it's because you're smart as hell and also intuitive, and you want to dive deeper into what these really mean for you because something is calling you here to untangle these. So today I want to dive right in because this is a bit of a in-depth sorty kind of feely subject, and I do have a lot of notes in front of me here because of that, so don't mind me looking down to check on what I was writing down for myself and reflecting. But today we're going to get into this juicy topic that's been coming up for me as well as the people around me lately that I love and care about, which is untangling these three truths, these three terms, which are privilege, birthright, and responsibility. To me, those are three really important words to consider, not on just a practical level, but on a spiritual level and in consideration of yourself and your whole life and its worth and its meaning. And so by sorting and untangling some of these wires that we've learned to get crossed over the course of our lives, we can reposition our perspective to live more clearly. This is not a judgment kind of episode. And that was very much my goal in this episode is, even though I'm very fired up and passionate about some of the examples of this that's showing up in my life, it's not a blame or a shame game. What I'm asking you to perceive or receive from this episode is to just notice in your life where you may be mixing up these three words or these three identities, these roles, these things in your life that are privilege, birthright, and responsibility, and start to untangle them or shift perspectives onto them to their more truer definitions so that you can live freer and clearer. Yeah, because I am so passionate about helping others find what it is to live so clearly based on the integration you've done of all parts of yourself, your life, and noticing it is for what it is, what you've got to work with, and then choosing from there and noticing the wonderful changes that happen in your life from your conscious choosing that I could talk about it all day, every day. So this is a meaty one, so we're going to try to get into it and not stay too long on any one area. So again, don't mind me looking down at my notes. But what we're going to start with is identifying these three words. What do they literally, like a dictionary definition, mean and a real-time feel kind of meaning? Because this is kind of the bread and butter of, do we actually know what these three things are and what they mean? So a privilege, the definition of a privilege is a special right, advantage, or opportunity granted and available to a person or a group. It is not guaranteed and can be given, removed, or changed. So to me, a real-time field definition is privilege and opportunity are synonymous to me. They mean the same thing. A privilege is something you're allowed to experience, not something you inherently own or automatically should get to receive, do, be in connection with. We're just going to lay them out right now. A birthright. This is a sensitive one. And so I'm not going to go overly deep into the word birthright today because, again, it's sensitive and I honestly feel I could do a little more digging myself. But we're just going to dig deep enough and focus deep enough to understand what it is and what it is not. Because, again, everyone's got some sort of stance on that based on who you are, where you came from, where you are on planet Earth, all these different things that we would deem a birthright. So the definition is a right, privilege, or possession to which a person is entitled by birth, meaning your birthright is what is inherently yours simply because you exist. Because you're here, humanoid you, on planet Earth, you should get to have, be, do these things. And we'll go into it later, but quite honestly, the list in actuality is way small, and it's way different than you would think it would be. It has nothing to do with who you are on the planet, where you came from, what your color is, what your country is, all those things. A lot of those things are subjective to our human life and the upbringing and the conditioning that we receive in a human life. So we'll go into that later. A responsibility is the state or fact of having a duty to deal with something or have control over something or someone. So the real-time translation of that is, it's what you are asked to care for, respond to, or steward over. It's a thing that's been given to you, a task, a role that has been given to you that you are being asked to take dominion over. And who you're being asked by can vary. Yeah, so responsibility outside of the context of who has deemed you responsible for this, is just you being asked to take dominion over a thing, person, place, thing, connection, opportunity, job, you name it. It can be a responsibility. And on paper, all of these definitions look kind of simple, look kind of straightforward. Like, yeah, a privilege is something you get to do. You're allowed to experience, not a guarantee. A birthright should be a guarantee, should be loosely. I'm here, this should be mine. Um, and by birthright, I kind of mean unanimously across humanity. Yeah. Birthright to me means I should have it, you should have it, every single human being on earth should have it because we're a human existing here on earth. And a responsibility is a role to duty over something. Yeah? So, they look simple, but in real life, we blend them together constantly. And I honestly don't believe that's any one person, place, thing's particular fault. That's what happens when we live here on planet Earth. That's what happens when we grow up. We live in particular countries. We're raised with particular parents and families. That's just what happens here. I don't think there's any point in blaming someone for why these wires get crossed. We perceive how we perceive. We drop down here into the bodies and the worlds and the parents and the families and the roles and all the things because that's what we signed up for and planned on as a soul. Yeah, we're here doing it. And this is what happens on a dense 3D earthly life. No one's fault. But anyways, we're going to move on to where these three definitions tend to get mixed up. And this is where we can start to build really deeply entrenched belief systems about this is what a responsibility is. This is why I do what I do in my life. This is why I feel I should have this in my life. And again, it's no one's fault. That's just belief systems that we've formulated over time. And sometimes they are very difficult to unentrench from, but they are so worth it. Yeah. Because oftentimes when we become really deeply entrenched in a belief system that is no longer based in, I guess I want to say pure or innocent fact. You know what I mean? Like when conditioning in life happens, regardless of how it happens, when it's not as pure or as detached as it could be, that's where conflict arises, tension arises, because your deep entrenchment in a belief system can be very different and conflicting with another person, place, thing you're in connection with. And that's where conflict arises, is when this belief system is no longer rooted in as baseline truth as you can get it. You know what I mean? For lack of nitty gritty details there. So the first of three kind of baskets we're going to categorize these crossed wires in is when we turn privilege into birthright. This is a big one. We all do it. We all do it. It's when we start believing that access to a person, place, or thing is entitled, is always guaranteed. And the three key examples I'm going to give here is in relationships, when we assume they should always be there for me, or I should always get to tell you what to do because you're my child, or I should always get to do this type of way in my job or in my home or in my life because I'm this type of citizen, because I make this much money, because. It's when we start taking these relationships as I should always have access to you, when in actuality, a healthy detachment of this connection and appreciating that it's a fragile and temporary thing, like it could end, gives you a lot of perspective shift. We're going to get into that later. I need to continue on with the wire crosses. Another example of when we turn privilege into birthright is comfort. And this is a sensitive one because I myself, the wire crossing issue can be when you assume or when you demand that life should feel good all the time. And like I said, it's sensitive even for me. It's a little triggering for me because I'm working on integrating into belief systems in which I believe that life does get to be easy, smooth, flowing, amazing and awesome. You know what I mean? And so as we're reaching for those things, we also come to the fact that we live in dense 3D human planet Earth. And we also signed up for a life that comes with challenges, hurt, pain, dis-ease, discomfort. Like it's okay if you don't want to subscribe to this belief system, but planet Earth is a school planet. And so we came here knowing that that was part of the gist. And so, it's hard to subscribe to even that fact that safety or ease or that life should be good all the time should be a birthright And quite honestly, as much as I would love for it to be so, I don't know if that's how it works because that's what we signed up for here on earth. We're always riding this balance. If you'll go back to one of my earlier episodes of duality, I really dive into the concept of duality, where we're always exploring, reaching for, believing that life gets to be good, peaceful, easy, loving, joyful, all the things. Also knowing that challenges and circumstances that we find less than all of these awesome things come into our field and our experience for a reason. Okay, a reason, season, hopefully not a lifetime if it's in the challenging basket, you know what I mean? But it's not inherently guaranteed. And then the last example I'll give is opportunities. And this is a big one for me. This is the triggering example that pops up in my life, is when we think an opportunity should be guaranteed to us, of like, I deserve this because I want it, simply because I want it. And as much as I also believe that if you want it, if you believe it, you can achieve it, or you can strive for it. If you can dream it up, it's a possibility to be there for you. I also believe in all these other concepts of, there's different timelines and there's different levels or percentages of that success idea of some particular thing you're reaching for, as well as knowing that we opportunities are chances. They get to end, and they don't necessarily mean you're the right fit for this person, place, thing, connection, opportunity. As well as, I lost my train. Oh, deserving, like as a human birthright. I lost my train of thought. Got it. Okay. Deserving it because I want it. There's the other side of the I want it, I dream it, I can achieve it coin, where you also have this appreciation for the concept of surrender, where if not this, better. And if you have a higher power, your relationship to divinity, you also subscribe to the belief that you trust your source of divinity, that if not this, better, like you have a higher perspective than I do. And so just because I want it doesn't mean it's what's best for me. And that's where the trust and the surrender to your relationship with divinity comes in. And so that's where it's not a birthright. It's a relationship. It's a dance with privilege based on your relationship with the world, and your form of divinity. Need to move on. The next place we get our wires crossed in these definitions is when we turn responsibility into control. And it's when we think being responsible means managing outcomes, and then we start to lean towards the over-controlling side of managing everything, of life isn't going to be okay unless I have my hands in it, unless I'm moving the puppet strings, unless I'm making things happen the way I deem them to be important. And then we start to overtake on responsibility. And I was very much that way. I have family members and loved ones that influenced my life that were very much that way. And so I just leaned on the side of the control freak factor. Yeah. And then there's other, let me see, the examples of where we turn responsibility into control freaking is when we try to control other people's emotions. That's a hard one to do. I've seen me do it. Yeah. So when we realize that we just physically can't be responsible for someone else's emotions, it's them, it's in their body, it's in their soul, not your responsibility, but we try to manage it, even if it's with good intention. When we manage a crying or upset child, or we try to manage someone who's frustrated in a relationship, there's a difference between connection and management, as in, I need you to feel something else because I think it's my responsibility to get you to feel something else. Over managing relationships in a non-emotional context. This can be work, this can be parenting, this can be, we're humans, we're in connection all the time. But aside from the emotional aspect of it, it's the, how do I control your life? How do I influence your decisions? How do I get you to do what I think you should do? Because I think I have the duty or responsibility of influencing you to make your life go a certain way. And quite honestly and truly, it's not how it works. And then the last prime example, which I see me do, I see loved ones I care about do, is carrying things that aren't yours. In general, carrying responsibilities like, oh, here's a really, really good one that's oh so lovingly and powerfully in my world right now, is when mothers take on excessive responsibilities, things they think they need to do in the name of being a good mother, when in actuality you're bogging yourself down in your ability to be an amazing parent, simply because you are paying too much attention to details that are either so irrelevant or so not your responsibility that you're now lost in the sauce of, but this is what a good mom does. And that's a huge entanglement. Yeah, it really is. I've seen me do it. I've seen loved ones do it. And it's just where we start to scoop in all of this stuff in our life and think it's our responsibility to manage. But in that carrying of all this stuff, especially stuff that doesn't belong to us, that's not our duty to domain over, we get bogged down and then become almost incapable of managing ourselves, let alone anyone else. So, needing to move on, we have these three buckets. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even go over the third basket here of when we inflate birthright into ego identity. This is a kind of tricky, elusive one. When we expand what is mine, what is guaranteedly mine for the sake of safety. And by safety, I don't necessarily mean the safety you deserve to exist here as a human, not being persecuted, like being attacked after all the time. I mean, keeping your ego safe. Your human nervous system and your ego are designed to keep you safe. And so when we keep reaching and reaching and reaching for this is mine, belongs to me, this should be guaranteed, it's an ego comfort thing. It's an ego safety thing. So when we think of controlling timing, I am so guilty of this. So probably I'm like number one guilty of trying to control timing, especially when it came to my twin flame journey of just trying to facilitate things to go a certain way at a certain time for my safety, for my comfort. As much as I could claim that it was for someone or something else, it was so I could feel okay. Controlling outcomes, trying to manipulate a job, a project, another human, a scenario, like anything so that it goes the way you think it should go. That's when we're so zoned in that we're not able to come back and see that your truth is just as real as everyone else's. And so your viewpoint, your perspective, your way you think it should be could be just as valid as anyone else's. And then deciding what should happen. Being a you should kind of person is an ego thing. If you catch yourself saying you should a lot, I will lovingly and politely call you out and saying that you are super duper in your ego. And so that's why even on this channel, when I say you should, I catch myself and go, ooh, I don't know if I should say that. Yeah, because I really, really don't like putting shouldas on people anymore because I don't like being should've, you shoulds. So I would encourage you to take notice of that. Okay, so now we have these three concepts of where we as humans cross these definitions of when we turn privileges into birthrights, responsibility into control, or birthrights into ego comfort. Yeah? And it happens. All of them happen to all of us. That's part of what we signed up for here on planet Earth. I would love to now take the last few minutes to invite you into some really great perspective shifts. And like I say, as I notice these things coming up in my life, I just try to sift through them one at a time of like, wow, this really triggers me when this person thinks that this is their right. Why does that bother me? What do I notice about that? What do I notice about me doing that in my life? Do I do that somewhere in my life where I assume this should be this way? And it just gives me clarity. It reminds me to zoom out and detach a lot. And detachment is something I've been working on oh so earnestly lately. So this is the point of the perspective shift. What if we were to consider or subscribe to a belief system where most of your life, and I mean most, like a good 85% of it, is privilege, is get-tos, is opportunities, not responsibilities, possessions, entitlements. Most of your life. And by everything, I'll try to give you some real-time examples. What if it's a privilege to get to feed the birds and the animals in your backyard, not a responsibility? What if it's a privilege to get to be a stay-at-home mom and focus so hard on loving your home and family because that's just what you're so good at and so appreciated for? What if you get to have this partner, this spouse, this marriage for a season or hopefully a lifetime, but it's not guaranteed? You hold it so fragilely, that's a nice word here, hold it with such careful hands because you know that it could end. What if you step back and think of all the things in a day that normally you think you should get to do, either because you believe you're entitled to it or because you believe it's your responsibility, when in actuality you realize that so very little of it is meant to stay. So much of your life can end. And that's a really scary and triggering thought to consider. And so I give you and I both some grace and space for that, to hold that truth of like, there is so much in this world that we hold in our each individual lives that can end. It can. It can. Lives can end, relationships, jobs, homes, safety seasons, all of it can. It can end. That's what makes it a privilege. It can change. And so when we hold things with that sense of honor, like I get to, what an honor it is to have the privilege to be this parent, to be this partner, to be in connection with this thing, we have so much more appreciation for it, and we're so much more present with it, which is generally the huge main concept that I'm being asked to look at in my life, and also like the meat of this perspective shift of this episode. And then what if you, in considering another belief system I would ask you to consider, is what if your only true birthrights are so much more simple than you think? So much more simple. And to me, again, because this is a sensitive subject, the only ones I could think of that I can genuinely build a belief system around, or I can really devote to, are that I'm here, I exist on planet Earth, I was born, I'm here until I'm not. I'm here for the duration of my ride. I get to choose. I have a birthright to choose. At some point when you grow up, you gain autonomy. You're meant to live most of your life in sovereignty and autonomy of yourself. You get to choose. You get to be as aware or unaware as you want. And I hate to say it this way, but you get to be as aware or as ignorant as you want. You get to choose that. It's your inherent right. As much as people try to do that or try to influence that for you, at the end of the day, the one soul you're responsible for is yours. And you get to do with it what you will. You also get to respond, because we came down here in a 3D Earth life knowing that there would be all of these things to interact with and do and respond to and learn from. And you get to choose if you want to respond, let alone how. Everything else, I'm talking relationships, opportunities, seasons, and especially certain roles of your life, are privileges and not guarantees. And this is where, especially when we talk about the word roles, this is when I want to shift into the concept of how we reframe responsibility. Responsibility is not about controlling life, it's about how you meet it. Responsibility, your only responsibility is to participate, not control the entire experience, yeah? That was a mind-blowing perspective shift, eye-opener for me of like, I am responsible to participate, not choose the experience, not control the experience, not decide the experience, participate. Yeah? Take autonomy for myself, participate. Choosing honesty, making integral choices, caring for what's right in front of me, letting go of what's not my responsibility so that I can hone in and do a more amazing job on the roles that I have been asked to steward. Yeah? So when you take those roles and you really appreciate them and you hold them to such high esteem, all of the other BS that really doesn't matter or is getting in the way of you doing an amazing job at the roles that you've been asked to take domain over, it gives the perspective shift to hone in and do a better job at those roles you have, because they've been given to you. It's an opportunity. Yeah, it's another get to, but in a responsible kind of way. It's in a duty type of way. And that's where a little bit of hierarchy comes in, whereas you're responsible for raising another human that you created, or you're responsible for this project at work because someone chose you over someone else for the job because they thought you were the right candidate for the job. Simple as that. It can be as vast or as subtle of a hierarchical duty as you want to make it, but it's there. And then when we appreciate that it's there and what it is not, we can focus on doing a better job. And then the last thing would be letting go of control without shame. Rather than doing this, oh, you're right, I feel so grimy because I've actually had my fingers in all this stuff. When we blur the lines or when we get the wires crossed, we all do it for safety. There's no shame in that because everyone wants to feel safe. That's a human wired in response. We all crave safety. But control isn't actually safety. Control often creates tension, which makes the efforting for safety so much harder. And I've seen me build that up over years and years and years. So This is where we reframe letting go of control of you don't need to control much of anything, really. You don't need to control everything. You don't need to own everything. And you don't need to hold everything. Okay, so you don't need to hold all of these responsibilities and scoop them up because you thought of it or because you care about it or because somebody else won't care about it or think about it. When we let a lot of that stuff go, we feel the weight of responsibility lessen, as well as the shame of what happens when we hold it all poorly. Yeah, I've seen me do that really a lot over the years of trying to hold so much that wasn't mine and then being ashamed or guilty or heartbroken over how it didn't go how I wanted it to because I was incapable of doing the job because I was holding on to stuff that I didn't need to. And so when we are shameful about things not turning out the way we want them to simply because we aren't meant to try to make it so, we get to let go of that. We get to let go of shame that doesn't belong to us, and that is so healing. If you got nothing else out of this episode today, understanding that true surrender to what is and isn't yours and what does and doesn't belong to you is meant to help you let go of shame for one, why you thought it should be that way in the first place, and two, appreciating what gets to happen instead of you trying to control it. And that can be really scary. And it can also be, like I said, you can feel shame for it not going the way you wanted it to go, but that's not yours to hold. And so it's a really beautiful thing to start shedding those. And so lastly, I want to wrap this up with a closing and an integration moment where I want to ask you some questions, whether you want to journal about it or just ponder about it or come back to this later. Sit with these things a little bit at a time and start to notice these things in your day of, what in my life have I been treating like a guarantee that might actually be a privilege? I did this the other day. I literally went through like an entire day because something somebody did triggered me. I was like, oh, I can't believe they think that that's such a role or responsibility they have when it's a get to. So I went through my whole day and went, wow, I get to drive this car. Like I get to go to work. I get to kiss my son goodnight. Like I realized that all of these things that sometimes when I'm in a funky or bad mood, I treat like I have to. When you step back and say, I get to all day long, mind blowing shift, mind blowing. What in your life, how many times in a day can you say, wow, I get to do this? What am I trying to control that isn't actually my responsibility? And why am I doing that? Am I doing that for ego comfort? Am I doing that because I think it's my responsibility to care for this person, place, thing? Is it even effective? Is what I'm doing genuinely of service, or am I doing a disservice to this person, place, or thing by not giving the responsibility where it's rightly goes? That's a huge one too, especially in the journey, in the twin flame journey of taking on responsibility for what's not yours is often prolonging someone else from having to deal with that responsibility and or step into it, which is the best gift you can give them, as hard or as triggering as that may be for the both of you, for one to let it go and for the other to step into it. To me, that's like the end game of the twin flame journey, is shifting responsibility and balancing it where it truly belongs. And that's uncomfortable. I'll let you know that later. That's uncomfortable, that letting go and entrusting someone else to pick up the responsibility, regardless of whether they do or don't, is uncomfortable. And then someone realizing that they haven't been taking on a responsibility that they've been asked to domain over is uncomfortable. But you can get there. You can all get there. And then the last thing I want to ask you is, what is truly yours to carry right now? What is truly your roles, truly your responsibilities? What are you holding on to simply because you have for 20 years? What are you doing because somebody told you should, and so you just keep doing it because somebody thinks you should, even though you don't think you should? Where can you discern what God is truly asking you to be, do, domain over right now? And so, like I said, I hope that by going through your whole day and asking what you get to or what you have to, you blow your own mind about these three words: privilege, birthright, and responsibility. And I hope this was enlightening. I know it was a little heavy and long, but again, this is something that is deep spiritual work and deep medicine, that if we would start to sift through in our lives and start to integrate truer definitions of those things and shift perspective and what's really going on in our lives, I've noticed a difference in myself already since I first started taking notes for this episode. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you're encouraged to integrate. I hope that you're encouraged to reach out for help if you need it. I would love to work with people one-on-one with coaching and show you what integration work is like and how powerful it is and how powerful the change is in your awareness and then your conscious choosing. I'm also really excited. I really want to start a group, a membership on YouTube specifically for divine feminines. And so I would love it if you would pass this along, subscribe, like, share, so that I can start to build enough audience to build this community that I wish I had 5 years ago. I want to be there for somebody like that. I want to be the leader of a community for divine feminines that are looking to grow and step into that role and be all they're meant to be as divine feminine. So if that sounds something interesting to you, stick around, hang in there with me till I can get that membership rolling, and I can't wait to devote myself to that. So thank you. Keep seeking, keep softening, keep showing up for yourself. Remember, the light you're looking for is right here, already inside. Mwah! Have a good day.